Hello and welcome to Cambridge Marketing Conference. This is a really peculiar event, if I'm being really honest with you. We work with lots of brands and clients over in Cambridge, and we really wanted to put on an amazing conference that was going to support brands through a difficult time during COVID. So therefore, we created the Cambridge Marketing Conference. This event was supposed to be in person. It was supposed to be in a really nice location in the heart of Cambridge and put on a great show full of great marketing minds. The problem came when COVID hit, and we had to, like many of you out there, completely change our direction. So we thought, rather than canceling the event completely, what we would do is we'd create an online webinar. Now, I'm going to give you a few pieces of housekeeping like everyone does at these events. What you've got on the right-hand side is you have the chat location. You can comment in there, say hello to everyone else who's listening, jump into the debate, ask questions, you name it. That chat box on the right-hand side is for you to use as much as you want. What we're going to be talking about today is 3 key areas of marketing. We'll look at paid advertising. What are the real great brands doing right now to overcome difficult times? We're going to look at what's happened in the past. What has really impacted brands before and how have they overcome them? And then also look at some techniques that you can use if your budget's rather tight. You know, during difficult times, you often have brands that pull back their marketing spend to try and get through adversity. And we're going to talk about those challenges as well. So we've got some really great speakers, and I'm so thankful for them to kind of be here with us today. But like I said, jump in that chat, say hello. We've got quite a few of you here, so it's going to be a really nice show. What I want to do, though, I want some input, right? Normally, I'd be kind of put your hands up for this. Unfortunately, we're not in a room. So I really want you to answer this poll. So I've got a poll here. If you can just jump in, this should work. It says, what have you done with your marketing spend during COVID-19? If you can just jump on there, answer a few questions. I just want to get some feedback from you guys about what you've actually been doing through this difficult time, because it really allows us to see what's happening in the market. We've seen, as an agency, big changes. Some brands have gone all in. They've done the whole Warren Buffett, when everyone's scared, keep going. We've got other clients who have had to tailor back, risk of redundancies, nervous, preserving cash reserves. We've seen both sides. But I think you guys can see the results here. A lot of you are remaining the same. We've got kind of 37, 38% of the audience saying, we haven't moved our budget. We're plowing on. And what have we done? I've actually increased my business's marketing spend. I've actually increased by 90%. I really think this is the time personally, but it's nice to see what you guys have done. A lot of people decreasing, a lot of people staying the same, but no one's really increased. So it's really interesting to see. A lot of brands, what they're doing is it really depends on their sectors. E-commerce, of course, maybe you'd increase. If you're a physical store, you've obviously decreased. But what I want to talk to you today is the layout. So the first speaker we have is Tom Jacobs. Tom is a head of advertising. He works mainly in the paid media section of the advertising world, looking at Google advertising, Bing advertising, YouTube, Facebook, these sort of platforms. And when I asked him to do this session today, he sent over some really cool ideas of how his clients have really been able to push on, being able to develop through this difficult time and kind of make good of a bad situation. And he's also got some examples of brands and clients who have pulled back on spend. So there's a lot going on here. So what I'm going to do, and without further ado, I'm going to bring Tom in onto the set to talk about what's going on. Now, as always, what I really want you to do is I want you to put in any comments you have on the side. Now, I'm not expecting Tom to jump in right away and start bringing them in, but what I'm going to expect from Tom to do is every now and again just pull back to the comment section. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with Tom Jacobs, head of advertising, and we'll move from that point. But I'll speak to you guys really soon.
Brill, thanks so much, Pete. So yeah, as Pete said, I'm Tom Jacobs. I head up our advertising department here at Distract. I think whenever we do these talks, I always find the questions that people ask me or the answers that people want is always like, what's going on inside your agency currently? What are the things that you're currently doing? What's hot inside these platforms at the moment? So whenever I get invited to do these talks, I always try and deliver that content through them. I always try and answer those questions, deliver what's current inside our agency at the moment, what we're seeing the best success from, so that you guys can try and implement those things in your own businesses as well. So that's the kind of thing that I'm going to try and cover in my talk. So first of all, a little bit about me. Tom Jacobs, I head up our advertising department here. I basically oversee all of our paid search and all of our paid social activity. We're in a team of digital marketing experts and have overseen a number of different award-winning campaigns. So let's dive into it a little bit. So the first thing that I want to discuss today is something that we've coined marketing intuition. Now, one thing that I've observed since working in marketing for a number of years now is that people in our industry in digital advertising are obsessed with data, absolutely love data. And data is absolutely amazing. It has taught us so many fantastic things that have led to so many great results. But I worry that advertisers are starting to get data paralysis. And basically what I mean by that is that they can't think beyond what the data tells them to think. In short, what I think that we're lacking, or what we're losing, is marketing intuition. The idea of doing things that data doesn't necessarily tell us to do, but when we think about how consumers and how customers buy, then it makes more sense for us to do things, essentially. And that's what I'm going to talk through now. So, as I've said before, advertisers have become obsessed with data. They've become obsessed with the idea that we can map out a buying journey into tiny little boxes. And when you think about that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to put the most complicated thing in the world into tiny little logical steps. The human brain, right? Something so immensely complicated. And us as marketers are trying to say, well, people definitely will look at that website first, then they'll see that thing, then they'll see that thing, and then they'll buy. It just doesn't work like that, right? People don't follow these logical steps towards buying something, which means that the data is going to become a little bit less important to us. We need to rediscover that idea of intuition, thinking what people are going to do, not just reading what they do through data. So the difference between brands which are going to succeed going forward and the brands that are going to fail going forward are the ones that can inject some intuition, some clever thinking into their marketing, and not necessarily just rely on what data tells them to do. And let me give you a little bit of an example with this. So one of our clients is the National Education Union, the largest education union in the UK, have nearly 500,000 members across the education space. Now, we're tasked when we were brought on board by them to acquire more members for their education union. So you can imagine the look on their faces when we said to them, well, rather than bidding on people that are looking to join a teaching union, we'd like to instead bid on people that are looking for teacher pay scales. You can imagine that all of their faces were a little bit puzzled. Well, I'm sorry, guys, but people who are looking for teacher pay scales might not be looking for an education union. Like, you want to spend our money on that instead? Fair point, right? Because that's what the data would have told all of the other agencies, all of the other marketing people to do, bid on people that are looking to buy a membership for an education union. But where this is a little bit different is that you see way more searches for pay scales. And who searches for that? Who's looking for pay scales for teachers? Teachers, right? So by searching for a pay scale, you're basically saying to the National Education Union, hey, I'm a teacher. Who's our target market? Teachers. So whilst we might not have necessarily got a whole new load of memberships through the front door, when we ran these ads, which by the way, incredibly cheap clicks because all of our competitors are bidding on people looking to join teaching unions. So when we got all this traffic to the site, we basically got our own audience of almost 100% teachers, right? That's exactly who we want to talk to. Now, you might be sat there thinking like, oh, brilliant, so what? But you haven't got any new memberships yet, so it's all worthless. Until now, what we did was we were able to utilize something called a RLSA audience. It's something that basically collects all of the people which search for a certain term and come to a site that look on a certain page, take all of those people, apply those back to Google, And now every time that someone within that audience, which by the way, we're super sure is all teachers because they're all looking at teacher pay scales, searches for something broad like join a union, we're able to put our ad at the top of Google right there, knowing that those people are teachers, knowing that they're just about to think about joining a union. Straight away, we're onto them. Why? Because we know that they're teachers already, because they already engaged with an earlier ad of ours. It's being a little bit smarter. And what we was able to do with using this strategy is save a whole load of wastage and a whole load of money on advertising, meaning that we were able to pull the cost per acquisition of a member down from £20 down to £12. How? Well, all of those other searches of join a teaching union, I'd like to join a teaching union, all of those searches were being bid on by all of our competitors. Really, really expensive terms, spending loads and loads of money on that, which basically means that you have a pool of advertisers all fighting over a handful of leads. That gets very, very expensive very quickly. By looking a little bit earlier in that buying journey and collecting a pool of people that are all exactly the target market that you're after, you're able to cut out all of that wastage and all of that really expensive bidding and save yourself a whole load of money in advertising. So just by, instead of looking at what the data told us to do, which is, bid on, I want to join a teaching union, instead use a little bit of intuition and think, well, what else do they search for? How can we actually reach these people in a different way? You're able to cut your CPA almost in half. The next thing that I want to talk about is the power of questions. Now, questions is a really, really interesting one because what I'd like to introduce you to is the idea of a buying funnel. Now, anyone that's worked in marketing before or has even done anything with marketing really will understand at least a bit what a marketing funnel is. There's loads of different varieties of them, but it's basically the idea that people don't necessarily always act directly with spontaneity. They don't make purchases and decisions based on spontaneity. They research things, they ask questions to people, they look things up, they compare, they read reviews. This is the idea that people don't necessarily just buy things as soon as they see them or as soon as they think of them, they research them. And this is really interesting to us because what you often find in buying funnels is that you have three stages. And three stages, which I like to call them, are awareness, consideration, and conversion at the bottom. Now, what you often find is that bids and the cost of advertising gets more expensive as you get further down the funnel, i.e. as the prospect has more intent to buy. Naturally, because advertisers want to advertise to people that are more likely to buy things, which is down at the bottom of the funnel, right? And what we often see is that advertisers disregard the top two levels because they kind of think, well, people that are researching around my product or service are kind of comparing products or services. They aren't people that are likely going to buy, which means that I'm likely to spend my advertising money and not make an immediate return, which puts them off doing it, which is a very short-sighted way of advertising. The fact is there's way more people to go at higher in the funnel, and also it's a way cheaper to advertise up there, but it will save you money in the long run. Stop you having to fight over those really high intent keywords down at the bottom of your funnel. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how that works. So let's just hit this here. So, as we've run through, every single business will have questions which its prospects will ask. And most times you'll find that businesses can answer those questions. Now, the problem is that our prospects don't call us up and ask when they have a question about what we do or about our industry. Instead, what they do is they turn to Google and they Google it. In fact, I read a stat that 89% of people will Google a question before reaching out to another human being to ask it. That's mad. That's not almost 90%. Almost 9 in 10 people will Google it before asking another human being how to do something, for advice on something, if they have any suggestions about a problem or an opportunity that they're facing. That's absolutely mad. And what that does is it poses a huge opportunity for us as advertisers to basically fill that vacuum there and create content which answers our prospects' questions. higher in the funnel before they know that they even really want to buy from us. So we were thinking about this as a marketing agency, and we were thinking, well, how can we fill this void here? How can we answer all the questions that people were asking and then create value for them before even we actually know that they exist? And we got thinking, okay, let's ask some questions. So we turned to tools, things like Google Trends and Answer the Public, if you've ever heard of those two, which basically are free online tools which give you a list of all of the questions which people type into Google around a certain topic. So you submit a topic or a question or a keyword to these platforms, and then basically these platforms then give you at the other end all of the different questions which people ask around them. Really, really useful tool. So basically we submitted some things that we specialize in, whether it be Facebook ads, whether it be Google ads, and we got a whole host of questions that people had basically typed into Google and looked for the answers for. How to set up a Facebook ad, how to optimize this part of my Google ads campaign, how to advertise if I'm a charity, what are the best ways to advertise my accountancy in 2020? These type questions, right? And what we did is we then created a podcast, which then went through all of the questions and answered all of the questions. So that content is now freely available online, answering the top questions that people asked, right? What we were able to do from that is we were then able to transcribe them and create written content and blogs on the back of this. So not only do we now have audio of these questions being asked, but we also have written word of these questions being answered as well. And then what we also have is we have video of these being answered as well, because we recorded all of the podcasts on video as well as audio. So now what we have is we have this one pillar of content, which has created 3 separate content segments. So we've got loads of content now answering all of these questions, and that's all freely available online. And what we find is that people that are looking for these answers are searching for this stuff and finding this stuff all the time. So people are finding all of the answers to the questions that they've been asked through the stuff that we've created, which is all well and good. Now, you might be thinking again, like, Tom, that's all well and good that you provided answers to questions and stuff like that, but we need leads, we need to pay the bills here. And I think that what you've got to consider there is who's asking the questions, who's asking them. And for us, it's marketing managers asking those questions. It's the marketing managers who also hire us and who fire us, right? So what we've done is we've paired up the people who we want to speak to. We just answered their questions directly. We've synced those two things together. Now, what I find is really incredibly useful about this is that you'll find that you have so many more people reading your content than you necessarily even know about. So we'll have people that are reading our content and watching our videos and listening to our podcast now that our new business teams don't even really know about, because they're still higher in that funnel. They haven't reached that bottom of the funnel yet. Oh, we've got some questions. Yes. Oh, this is good. Like the idea of posting answers to questions. This would be a great strategy for me. Absolutely, Julia. And Julia, what I would say about this is I would say that this strategy is so transferable from industry to industry. Why this is so great is because every single business has prospects answering questions, whether you're an accountancy, whether you're a marketing agency, whether you're someone in retail. Everyone's prospects have questions that they ask before they make buying decisions. The idea that customers are largely spontaneous is just completely false. People research these things regardless of what it is that they're looking to buy, which means that this is a strategy, this is an opportunity that pretty much any business can replicate, essentially, which is why it's so useful. What have we got next? This is an interesting point. So what I want to get at here is that I see so many brands skipping that top of the funnel element, whereby they don't try and warm prospects up, they don't try and offer content at the top, they just go straight to the bottom and are bidding on things like buy this product, hire this agency, do this. They're bidding on those really high intent keywords. Or they're showing ads to these people that work in whatever it would be, saying, please book in a consultation with us, or please buy from us. Basically, what they've done is they've jumped the 2 levels of the funnel. And I think that if you're using just standard targeting metrics to offer sales messages, like that's just not going to work. That's basically me coming up to you in the street and asking you to buy something. You're going to be like, who is this person? You need to warm these people up at the start of your funnel so that they feel that they've got a connection to you before you try and offer them a sales message. Because if you don't do that, you got to remember that these people see thousands of adverts a day. What makes yours stand out? Do they already know who you are? Have you offered them some sort of relevant content, helpful content, even innovative, inspiring content before? If you haven't, it's going to be difficult for you to cut through that noise. You need to be cleverer than just advertising people that work in a certain industry or do a certain thing. You need to be targeting people that have watched a certain amount of your video, who have listened to 3 of your podcasts in the last month, have visited your site 6 times in the last 2 months reading your content. These are the people that you need to be asking for meetings, asking to buy your product, asking to enroll on your subscription or whatever it is. If you're trying to target just anyone that doesn't know who you are, a lot of that is going to fall foul of not cutting through the noise and just become one of the other thousands of adverts which that individual sees every day. And you'll see a lot of advertising money wasted in not a very long time. So guys, we need to be clever with the advertising we're doing and with who we're showing it to. The next thing that I want to discuss is the difference between brands and advertisers. Now, people typically think that these 2 people are the same thing, but I very much think that they're not, and I'm going to explain why. So, brands and advertisers. So, what I want you to understand is that you see advertisers everywhere. And advertisers are kind of what I was talking about in the point just before. Advertisers basically push sales messages to you all of the time that you kind of largely ignore. They don't catch your attention. They're just kind of like pushing adverts towards you, if you like. Brands create messages which make you want to jump a little bit of the way back to them. They make you want to do something. They make you feel something. They make you react to something. So that's the 2 things there. And what I would encourage you guys to do, if you were to do anything on the back of this talk, is think, am I a brand or am I an advertiser? Look at the advertising that you're doing. Are you just pushing out the same sales messages to people all of the time, expecting a different reaction? Or are you creating content, creating adverts, creating experiences that is likely to make people want to go, oh yeah, okay, I'm actually interested in that. Oh, that actually speaks to me. Because if it's the former, you really need to change that up real quick, because people are becoming more and more aware to that stuff. They're becoming more and more accustomed to it, and it's just making less and less impact, which means that you're just going to waste your advertisement if you're doing that stuff. What you need to do is you need to combine the 2 things which I said at the start, which is data and intuition. You put them together and you create empathy. Now, empathy is fantastic, because what you find is that whilst you can automate a lot of data, you can't automate empathy. You can't automate the idea of understanding how someone feels about something and then playing that back to them in the form of an advert. Like, you can't automate that no matter how clever our machines get. Now, I want to talk briefly about the way that you can target on these platforms and why I think that we need to be moving from one to the other. So typically, and historically, we've seen that using digital advertising, you would target largely based on targeting metrics that people like Google and Facebook offer. People interested in this, people that match this type of behavior. What you're essentially doing there is you're renting data off these platforms. Essentially, you're renting the use of their data, their knowledge of the people that use their platforms to be able to send your own bespoke advertising messages. That's essentially what you're doing. Now, the thing is that leaves you vulnerable, because if you continue to rely on that type of data, that's just going to get more and more and more expensive, which we've seen historically has done. That's going to get more and more expensive. And then over time, you're going to be at a point where you see your cost per acquisitions have got so high that you can't afford to do it anymore. The margins have got so small. What you need to do instead is you need to take ownership of your data. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I mean by that. Owning your own data is that stuff that I talked about, whereby this person has listened to my podcast 3 times in the last month. Owning your own data is people that I know that this person has been on my website 6 times in the last 2 months. I own that data, which means that I have the right to advertise to those people with messages that don't rely on saying this person is interested in marketing, this person is interested in accountancy, for example. So what I need you guys to do is think about how you can find ways to capture more people into those audiences that you own rather than having to rent data off it. So that can be people that have watched your videos online, have visited your site, have checked into your page. Those type people are the type of people that we want to advertise to, rather than just people that don't know you but are kind of interested loosely in something you do. So let's move on a little bit from this. So yeah, as I said, what we need to do is we're going to find that people are going to be way more responsive to our adverts when they're showed something that is bespoke to them, rather than something that is just targeted at them, at a blanket people. So for example, what we do a lot of is we create a lot of content based on what marketing managers, what questions marketing managers ask. So for, let's say that someone who's running some Facebook ads or running some Google ads in-house, and they're looking for the top tips on how to advertise, how to optimize their campaign. And then they're searching for those tips, and they maybe find something on their site that's really useful to them. But to get them to the next stage, i.e., maybe where I can capture their data, their email address, their phone number, maybe get in contact with them, ask if they've got any additional questions, I need to harness that data. So we run ads, and Pete, I'm hoping that you can show something now. I'm hoping you can do like a live example, where we basically say to people, oh, we send ads to them in like LinkedIn and Facebook that basically say, these are the top 6 PPC mistakes that people show, that people make. And therefore you can download this for free. And then on the back of that, you'll have all of this free data, all of this free information that basically says how not to make these mistakes. And that's really useful for that person. But us as a brand, basically what we've got is we've got contact details that we can then put into our CRM. We've got information that those people have engaged with it at some point in the funnel, which means that they might be able to, they're essentially a consideration. We're interested in talking to them later on. Basically what we're doing by putting money into that is we're warming people up rather than just sending them cold messages. Please buy from us, please book in a meeting with our new business people. What you're doing is you're warming them up, you're introducing them to you before you ask for those messages. And that's what the difference between a brand and a advertiser is. Advertiser constantly, please buy from me, please buy from me, please buy from me. Brands offer useful information, answer questions, offer free downloads, offer free videos, offer webinars, all of these things that basically provide value. Because what this does, all of these drops in the ocean, what this does is, let's say that I'm a marketing manager at a charity, and I've been tasked with doing these bits of digital advertising. And I'm picking up some tips from the internet, which I've been searching. These guys Distract, they offer some cool information. Okay, now I'm seeing some videos online of them. Okay, that's interesting. Now I'm being shown ads. Do I want this free download? What's going to happen when my director says to me, oh, we're going to get a couple of agencies in to pitch for us for this project? Who am I going to think of? I'm going to think of Distract first, right? Because they've been showing me all of this information, all of these ebooks, all of this free stuff. We're going to be at the front of mind for when that stuff happens. We're going to forget all of those other advertisers that are just pushing the please buy from me messages. And instead, I'm going to think of these people. So that's something which is consistent across literally all industries, regardless of whether you're in law, whether you're in accountancy, whether you're in procurement, whatever it is that you're in. The idea that being in the forefront of your customer's mind and offering value earlier in the funnel, earlier in the buying process, to make it easier for you to get sales at the other end, rings true literally regardless of what you do. And it's something that literally every business can do. So I would really encourage, if there's any takeaway from this, that would be what you'd do. As I said before, the idea of this is to stop being one of the thousands of advertising machines that you see literally day to day, see thousands of adverts every day, stop being one of those machines and start being someone that offered you value. If I was to ask the audience about an advert that they could tell me that they saw today, like literally, can they remember an advert that they saw today? I'd be interested how many could actually remember an advert that they saw, what it was that was in that advert that actually cut through. Because, you know, you'd be exposed to hundreds already today, and I'd be surprised if you can remember more than 2 or 3, because that's literally the state of advertising. And honestly, that's, if you're spending money on these platforms, you're just another one of the hundreds. So, you know, we need to find ways to cut through the noise and be memorable. What you'll find over time is that, well, I'm gonna take a step back a step. What I call this whole idea of providing content to people based on what they've done on our site before is something that I call hyper-relevancy. Now, hyper-relevancy is the idea that adverts are most effective when most relevant to the people that they're being shown. Now, that's not really that complicated, is it? If you show me a product or a service which I'm interested in, I'm more likely to buy it. Sure, right? But if we can make something hyper-relevant, I've been looking for tips on PPC, and then you show me an ebook that literally says these are the top tips or these are the mistakes to avoid when doing PPC ads, that's hyper relevant to me. In the same way as, like, we work for a hearing loops company, right? So if someone searches how to install a hearing loop, and then we follow them around with content saying, here's a video of how to install a hearing loop, here's a list of the top 10 hearing loop manufacturers that you can buy, this type of helpful content, we're much more likely to cut through the noise because we're hyper relevant. What hyper relevancy generates is more click-through rate, is a higher click-through rate. You'll see that your ads will get more clicks because they're more relevant. At the other end, you'll see that you'll get cheaper acquisition costs because you're wasting less money on advertising. And also as well, journalists love high content, high relevancy information and content, which means that you'll find that you're getting more links to content as well. But most importantly, advertising can become more specific to users, which means that they're more likely to engage with it. So let's say, for example, we run a clothing line, a clothing line that specializes in women's clothing. So here we have someone that's searching for women's clothing. Now, typically, if I was the PPC manager on this account, I'd say, okay, that's a really broad search term. So I'm not that bothered about putting a bid on that. I'm not really that interested in that section. That could really be anything. But what I would do instead is I'd say, okay, has that person been on our site before? Okay, yes, they have. Okay, what product did they look at? Okay, they were looking at all like the pink t-shirts on our store. Okay, like now that's more interesting, right? So you see that the ad that we would put there if we didn't know that information, this one that you can see just here, you know, women's clothing, official site, is quite broad. It's quite vague. With the idea that we know that these people have been on our site before, they've looked at certain products, we can do something called ad customizers, which basically draws on the fact that they've looked at certain products before and then customizes the ad automatically to make it more hyper relevant to the person that's searching. And again, this can be relevant to literally anything. I've seen this done before for like plumbers, whereby someone searches for things like boiler repair, and then 2 weeks later they go back and search for a plumber, then changing the ad so it says boiler repairs. We've got 5-star boiler repairs in your area. Things like that. You know, it makes it more relevant and you're more likely to get clicks using this ad customizers method. So basically what it does is it draws on a spreadsheet like this one. They're super easy to build. You basically just list in all of the data from your stock, any offers that you've got, how many you've got, and which stores that they're available in, for example, and then basically use these little input fields, which is exactly the same as when you're using like MailChimp and you put hello, insert name, you know, these kind of custom fields, which just draws on that stuff. Super easy to do. And you end up with ads that look like this, really, really, really hyper relevant ads. Not before, when we were saying women's clothing shop here, we're now saying women's pink tops, 121 sold this week and only 34 left in stock. 20% off this particular product. Like, that is so much more relevant and so much more urgent than the other adverts that these people are going to be shown. So if you're shown this advert and then 3 others that just say women's clothing, which one are you going to click? It's going to be this one. 100% is going to be this one because it's hyper relevant to what they're looking for. So in summary, your adverts become more useful or more effective when they're useful and helpful to the target market that you're showing them to. So think of ways that you can make your adverts less selly and more helpful. Because what you'll find is that when you become helpful, when you become relevant, your conversions just organically increase on the back of that. But if you do what the other 90% of competitors are doing, which is searching for people that are looking to buy now, looking to make an immediate return on your investment, that's going to be a race to the bottom because advertising is only going to get more expensive in the long run. It's only going to get more expensive for you to reach these people in the long run, which means that over time, your margins are going to shrink and you're going to have a real problem acquiring customers. So what you need to do is you need to act sooner rather than later and put something in place that creates connections with your customers, that creates the idea of empathy with these customers earlier in the funnel before they are in a position to buy. The thing is that basic adverts that say, please buy from me, they just don't cut the mustard anymore. Let's look at another example here of how you can do this super simply. You can implement this tomorrow. Like you really could. So if you guys are running Facebook ads and running Google ads, take this strategy straight away. It's like so easy to do. So let's say that we're a solicitor. We're running a number of different adverts based on content which people have read, people have looked at on our site before. So all of the people that have looked at things like family law before, or maybe read a blog about family law, maybe read some of our question and answer content about family law, maybe attended a webinar about family law, maybe listened to a podcast about family law. This person is kind of loosely in the family law market, okay? Now, we begin to show adverts to those people on Google, on Facebook, I should say, based on the web pages that they visited on our site or off our site. They begin to see these type of adverts that promote our family law services. They click those family law services ads. They visit a site, they have a bit more of a read, but they don't convert. What I said before, where people typically aren't spontaneous. That's particularly true with high involvement purchases like hiring a solicitor, right? So people click the ad and they visit the site. 2 weeks later, they then search something really broad like lawyers near me. You remember what I said before when I said, a really broad search term like that? Am I willing to, I don't really know what they want. Am I willing to bid on that search term? Well, I am, because I know that this person has been on our family law pages before. I knew that they visited one of our family law webinars. They listened to a podcast, they read a blog, and they also looked at my service page on family law, which means I can show to those people an ad which says family law expert in Lincoln, or family law expert in Cambridge, or family law expert in Newcastle. You can customize it based on where they are. You can use all of these things to create adverts which are hyper relevant to what they are in the market for. So what you end up with at the other end of this is the idea that you're less reliant on data. You're less reliant on doing exactly what it is that the data tells you. And you're a little bit you end up with a little bit more of a hybrid approach where, sure, you listen to what data tells you to do, but you also interject some of that classic advertising thinking of like some of the old time greats like Ogilvy, where you think, okay, well, I don't have the data or anything like that to be able to connect with these people. So I've got to create genuine empathetic connections to these people. As soon as you fuse empathy with intuition, then you're on the path to be able to be successful and be able to survive in ever increasingly competitive markets. That's the next step for you guys really is, and what I tell our clients and everything is that if we can fuse data and fuse intuition, that's the best place for us to be in. And I guess the kind of sort of key takeaway really is like, don't be so serious with this stuff. Is that if you try it once and it doesn't work, try something else, be flexible with it, try multitudes of different things and throw a lot of the work at the wall and see what works for your particular niche, because different pools of people will respond to different types of content. It's important that you stick out these things and be able to build longevity and be able to build consistency before expecting a return. I think just on that point, that's another thing which is the one thing that will let marketers down, is that they deploy these types of helpful marketing and then still expect a return tomorrow. You need to be, that's the attitude of an advertiser. What I need to do is I need you guys to switch that attitude to the attitude of a brand. The idea that I help these guys today, and they'll inquire in 2 months' time. They'll inquire in 3 months' time. What's really interesting is that I sit in new business meetings with some of our clients, and they go, I feel like I already know you, when it's the first time that I've spoken to them or that we've spoken to them. And the thing is that they've been listening to our podcast, watching our videos on Facebook, on YouTube for 12 months, 18 months. They feel like they already know me. It's the first time that I've met them, but they feel like they already know me. They strike up conversations like saying, I remember in that episode that you said that you were doing this. That was really interesting. How did you do that? And I'm like, that's mental, So what you've got to remember is that while you're creating all of these videos, these podcasts, these webinars, these ebooks, and you can't see people engaging with them, what you're essentially doing is you're shaking hands digitally at scale. You're shaking hands digitally at scale with your entire audience, so that by the time that you sit down with them and have a cup of tea to discuss their requirements, they feel like they already have a connection to you. So you've done all of that hard work without even having to lift a finger. That's a really, really key takeaway. And if you can scale these campaigns to be into that position, then you will see your new business just spiral upwards, because honestly, it's so powerful when you can create something that does that. So that's pretty much the slides I prepared, really, but I'm happy to take any questions in the chat part of this. Otherwise, the key thing to kind of point you in the direction of is the free strategy sessions, which that we're offering at the moment. So basically, anyone that wants to have a conversation with myself and my team, just I've been facing this advertising problem, or we've got this product and it's just not selling as well as it used to, or I've got this new product and I really want to know how to make the best of it, or I've introduced this new service, how can I make the best of it? Honestly, book yourself one of the free strategy sessions. I'll handpick some people from the team that I think are most relevant to help with your problem or opportunity, and we can just sit down and have a chat and just basically throw the ball around and see how best that you should tackle the problem or the opportunity that you're facing. Always happy to do that. So yeah. Sarah Lavelle, where do you find the most commonly asked questions for your industry, please? Sure, absolutely. So 2 platforms which I'd recommend. First one is Google Trends. It's a free Google platform. Basically, you can search keywords or topics, and it will basically give you top searches around that. It'll also show you the trends to which people are searching that. And then the other one is Answer the Public. Answer the Public is a free online platform where basically, again, you submit a keyword or topic, and then it gives you the top how, where, when type questions on the back of it. And they're the 2 platforms that we use to be able to build out our strategy. So yeah, they're kind of like the ones I would suggest using. Will you be running another session like this in the future? I've only the best thing that I would suggest that you do is get your very own session set up by submitting your name and email into our strategy meeting invitation here. Then what I can do is I can set up a meeting whereby we get myself and a few other people from the team to be able to have a bespoke session around your business and about what you do. So that would be what I suggest there. And it's free for limited searches. Yeah, that's correct, Guy. Yeah, that's correct. Well, I'll stick around for the rest of the session, obviously. So if anyone has any more questions as we go or anything, then I'll be here to answer them. But otherwise, book yourself onto a session, and we can go from there. I'll hand back to Pete now.
The one thing I'd say to everyone listening as well is the PPC mistakes guide, which I'm going to put on the screen for you now. Steal it. essentially is what I'm going to say. Tom showed me this as part of his strategy, but there's no data being tracked from this right now. Just get it, have a read of it, see how you could incorporate that as part of your business strategy. Now, really, any brand can make use of this. Even e-commerce, they can have their own guides to do certain projects. Same with B2B. The ebook download strategy is really, really useful at kind of taking your relationship from one stage to the next, whether that be someone who's just about to look at your brand or someone who's already kind of partway through the journey. It's just a really, really easy session to move forward with. So thanks, Tom, for that. Really appreciate your time. Any other questions, drop them away in the comment section and I can feed back to Tom as well. And just before, as we move on, I want to just do another little poll actually to all you guys back before we crack on. So if you can feedback on this poll, it'd be amazing. This poll says, what do you think you'll need to do to grow after COVID-19? Now, I've been hearing mixed messages from clients, different brands. Do they have to increase their marketing activity? Do you have to reallocate your marketing spend? And what that really means is, are you going to go from doing traditional to digital? And one of the things I've really noticed, we work with various universities across the UK, and we're seeing them move from event advertising or physical interaction advertising to digital. And the one thing I'm hearing a lot, which is more short term, is reducing spend and surviving. So it's nice to see your interaction, what you guys are doing there. But I'm personally, what I'm about to go through now is what history has really shown. I'm not going to go about who I am, but I'm the managing director of Distract, an advertising agency. We win awards. That's what I'll say. We'll move on. Now, when it came to COVID, when this thing hit us smack bang in the face, it kind of brought me back to the kind of lessons we learned from history. And I've always been a real big fan of entrepreneurship and a real big fan of what brands have done through difficult times. And it got me thinking, when COVID comes along, we've got two options. We can either roll over, take that furlough money, take that CBIS business loan scheme and just hunker down, roll over and try and wait for this to pass. Or we can attack, right? There's always two options in life when it comes to your business, your marketing expenses. Either you roll over, cash reserves and save, or you go and attack. And I wanted to kind of look into this before I did my decision on what we were going to do as a brand and what I was going to recommend to our clients. And it got me looking at the 2008 financial crisis. Now, the 2008 financial crisis, or the Great Recession, was a very, very long-term recession that happened between 2008 2010. And what really happened was we allowed us to see what the certain brands did at these times with the overall reaction and the overall output towards the end. Brands like Netflix, they attacked. They completely and utterly went to town. They were investing in their new digital technology. There's actually a full report that says that Netflix actually created their online presence during the recession. They were spending something like £40 million on creating their own online version. You wind the clock forward kind of 10 years from this point, and all they do is online. In fact, if you literally type in, I think it's DVD.com, it still takes you to Netflix's original business model, which is actually postal DVDs. You got your DVD in the post, and you watched it on a subscription model. During the recession, they invested in the new technology. They invested in their online. They invested in what is now known as Netflix. But they did start, like the Blockbuster, they did start with the DVD market, and they decided to attack. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that in 2008, their share price was $4, and that's $421, right? It completely and utterly changed their business model because they decided to do something about it. Apple, exactly the same thing. They're releasing the iPhone. They're releasing new products, new technology, and going all in on their brand advertising to get through this difficult time. And you can find example overall of what is really matters to brands and what's really happening. And one of my favorite ones is Amazon. Now, what Amazon decided to do during the 2008 recession was go all in on Google advertising. They went all in. Every single product search you pretty much did to buy a product, Amazon was there. They absolutely dominated the market with advertising and marketing because it was a time when you could acquire customers cheap. Because what normally happens in recessions or difficult times, brands pull their money out. They're pulling money out of marketing. And most of these platforms are working on a PPC basis, a pay-per-click. When more people are paying for it, the price of it goes up. When less people are using it, the price comes down. So in difficult times, COVID, recessions, it's cheaper to advertise on these platforms. Now, for a clever marketer or a clever FD or a clever managing director, what that really means is it's now cheaper to acquire customers. It's now cheaper to get that data. It's now cheaper to do all the stuff that Tom was talking about in the previous session. And great brands, they take advantage of that. Great brands really utilize that. And what's actually happened right now during this period of time, what's really happened is Amazon have now been able to turn off their ads. During the COVID, they ain't running as many adverts as possible. They're actually concerned about infrastructure, deliveries, dispatch, getting the customers' deliveries out in order. Because what happened in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, they've been acquiring customers. They've been picking up customers left, right, and center. And now it's a time where they need to make sure the systems are in place. They can turn it off. You see, what Tom mentioned previously about brand advertising and advertising in general is brand advertising. You're acquiring customers. You're acquiring a relationship. If you want to turn that off, it still retains. Advertising, going after just sales. When you turn that off, it's gone forever. Everyone needs to focus on building a brand. So we've chosen to attack. But I want to go in now about which areas you could attack as well. It comes down to two real sectors. You can attack through innovation, trying new things, pushing boundaries, becoming a better brand. Or you can attack through innovative marketing, going at marketing channels in a new and unique way. Now, a lot of people say, okay, Pete, it's really easy to innovate if you're Amazon, if you're Apple. What about my brand, my business? And I'm really happy if you put your business on the chat, let's talk about some of these things in real time. But as a customer or a consumer-facing brand, how do you innovate? And I have a weekly email that goes out, which is all about what I'm thinking at the moment or what I'm seeing my clients doing. And one of my good friends owns a restaurant. And obviously during the COVID crisis, he was on lockdown. You know, he had to stop filling his restaurant. And when I say innovation, what I really mean is innovation is completely and utterly related to your business. If you've owned a restaurant for 42 years and you've always owned a restaurant, you putting literally a card machine in that restaurant is innovative. It's not innovative to the general consensus, but it's innovative to you. And that's what you need to be doing through these difficult times. Now, my friend's always been anti-delivery, anti-takeaway, anti all this stuff. He's always been used to doing the restaurant world. During COVID, he starts his own takeaway service, and he's now making more revenue through delivery than he was when his restaurant was just normally there before. He's now actually debating closing the restaurant and going all in on takeaway. And that's what I'm saying to you guys. You have a chance right now through difficulty to really rethink your business model, to really actually understand, why are we doing this? Why are we spending our money here? Why are we doing the thing we've always done? You know, I speak all over the UK, and I'll, go to London, NEC. I'm headlining in the B2B marketing conference in London when it's allowed to happen again. There'll be Facebook, then me, then Twitter on stage. That's what's happening. And it was cancelled. And I had two options. We either could cancel all our speaking events moving forward for COVID, or we could create an online session like we've done today. And all of us have these opportunities. We can roll over. We can just go, okay, COVID stopped us, or we can reinvent the wheel. And that's what you've got to do for your business. And a business service provider, what can they do to reinvent the wheel? Well, they could do all the things that Tom was talking about. You know, a lot of you in the B2B space will be doing networking events, or you'll be doing cold calling. And this stuff is all fine. It works. It holds its own. But you have the opportunity to try that little bit more. One of the great things we have right now is we have everyone sat at home, pretty much in lockdown. We now have the ability to communicate with people on the digital landscape that we've never been able to do before. Push the boundaries and try and reinvent the wheel for your business. Forget what everyone else is doing. And if you're running a digital business, what is the best way to innovate? Now, for me, what I would say is you have to make sure you're optimizing your spend correctly. You have to be making sure that you know exactly what is happening with your spend. Far too many brands, I'll speak to them and say, what are you currently spending your money on, guys? And they'll say, we're doing this, we're doing this. And I'll say, which one's bringing you the leads? Which one's bringing you in the sales? And which one's doing your brand awareness? Now, you need to know exactly what is happening at all times. And the reason you have to know that is because when times get hard, When it becomes difficult, you have to know what to increase, amplify, and what to turn down. For example, 6 weeks ago, not many people were spending money. So why would I have a sales campaign on? I want to go brand awareness. I want to go lead generation. I don't want to go sales right now. I want to tinker with what I'm happening. You have to know every single bit of marketing, what it's doing for your business. It's really, really important. And also, if you haven't been doing digital, I really want to know, where have you been spending your money right now? Where have you been spending your money? Are you still doing print? That's fine. I'm not here to criticize print. It's a great channel. But why? Tell me what it's doing for your business. And if it's, I think, my gut feel says, then I'm not saying that's good enough. I want to know exactly what these positions are doing for you, because when times get hard, everything comes up for renewal. And Guy said a really great point here. Take inspiration. Take inspiration from other sectors. Take inspiration from other brands. Take inspiration from other people in a difficult scenario. And he's absolutely spot on. The hospitality sector has been absolutely crippled due to COVID. Absolutely crippled. And some of the stories have been amazing. In my local region, we're looking at dark kitchens. Let's forget the restaurant. We don't want people to sit inside anymore. That's too risk averse. The rates are too high. The rent's too high. Let's look at creating something really, really innovative and forward thinking. Let's bring up a question from Matt here. So, he said it all depends. There's no point spending money on substantive digital. I mean, I disagree, Matt. I need to know more about your business, but I can guaranteedly target your audience if they're in the healthcare sector. First of all, everyone's always looking for questions. And the great thing with these marketplaces is you only pay when someone clicks, right? Everyone's looking for initial touch points. They'll be doing some research before they do anything. You don't have to spend tens of thousands, right? You can spend hundreds. But we're in a position now. I mean, I'm TikTok, right? I'm using TikTok as a really bad example here, Matt, but just bear with me on this. Hold tight. When it comes to TikTok as a platform, it's amazing for awareness. Now, it's not amazing for your healthcare industry. It's not amazing for if you're targeting accountants. It's not amazing for these sectors, right? But every single person who you are trying to sell to has a personal life. Every single person that you are selling to has Instagram, Facebook. They have Google. They all have the platforms. We just have to sit there and plan. And I guess Tom's team does all this stuff and understand how we can communicate with this audience on a real great level. And Matt, I pretty much guarantee that if you asked Tom that question, he'd probably have an answer for it, because I've seen some of his client banks and it's pretty crazy. Guy is spot on again. Guy, I'm loving your interaction. I really appreciate it. Spend money where your audience is. Find them, attack. Nice and simple. Thanks, Guy. And this is the thing. One of the real areas for me is, are you tracking it? Let's know what's really, really happening. We need to know the nitty gritty detail on this. So please go back, go to Google Analytics, go to your Facebook Pixel and break it all down. I mean, one of the things I'm saying a lot at the moment to clients, team members is, do you even have a CRM system? Do you even have a customer relationship management system? Because if you don't, you have to get one. You see, the thing is, when you're doing the ebook campaigns or when you're doing speaking events or whatever you're doing, that information has to come into somewhere. This information has to come into somewhere. You have to be able to hold that data and hold that information so then you can utilize it in the future. A really great CRM system is Active Campaign. It's phenomenal, really, really brilliant. And what I'll say is, email me after this, and I've got a link that gives you a free month on Active Campaign. It's honestly phenomenal. I'll put my email just below here, and just hit me up if you've got any questions about the CRM system, because it genuinely is incredible. And every single brand out there needs to be utilizing a CRM system, and Active Campaign does that amazingly well. And here we go. I've kind of got into this, and everything has to interlink. If you're running, like Tom said, with these questions and answers, if you're running Q&A, you're not running it for the sake of it, right? I want to know who's asking these questions. Who is it? Who's asking these questions? Who's looking at our emails? Who's attending webinars? Who's answering the questions on the webinars? I want to know all this information. I want to gather this information so I can then prioritize my CRM system with the most likely to buy in the future. Because then I can offer them another webinar, or I can offer them an ebook, or I can offer them something of value, or a strategy session, whatever it may be. You need a CRM system to be able to do that. And it's really, really crucial. Because then, and this is the most interesting thing about marketing, all marketing is, digital marketing especially, It's simply a mathematical equation. It's simply a mathematical equation. We have to make sure that what the money we're putting in at one end is stacking up at the other. And I always say work backwards. Start with what a customer is worth to you in terms of profit. Then work out your conversion rate to the meeting. Then work out your conversion rate from the ebook, maybe. Then work out what your cost per click is for the ebook. Work it all out. It's a mathematical equation. It's really simple. Tom's team will be doing this all the time. And on that, what I'm going to say is, literally, I mean, the opportunity to sit down with Tom and his team, in my opinion, is phenomenal. Have a chat with him. He said to me he's not going to do any of these weird sales pitches about it, but I think you should just grab it. Just grab the opportunity to sit down with his team for the hour. I mean, the campaign regarding, taking a cost per acquisition from £20 to £12. I mean, I know the demand from a business owner perspective. I know what that can really do for your bottom line. It's pretty phenomenal. So I really recommend you take him up on that option. That's what it's all about. During these difficult times, you get some clever heads together, push through a strategy, make sure it's working. Don't waste time by just throwing money at yourself. Get some experts who've been there before and just use this time. Just use this time. And Emma's got a question here. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. I agree with Guy. Spending money on something simple like a banner ad in an online industry magazine can really help drive brand awareness, and you can check analytics. Absolutely. And Emma, this is a thing. The proof is in the pudding with your analytics, right? Let's not try and fake it here. You can be all rah, I can say all these amazing things, but the reality is, if Google Analytics and your tracking software is not showing this stuff, stop. Sack it off. Don't bother with it. Because if you can't track something, you haven't got a clue what's coming back. And that's the problem with print and banner ads print and traditional ads, is that we've got to use assumption. We've got to use our intuition, which is fine, but we don't really know what is going on here. We don't really know. And that's why many brands are moving from traditional to online, because they can track it much easier. They can track it much better. And that's what we have to be doing in 2020. Make sure you're tracking things. This, for me, was incredible. So a young entrepreneur, I saw this post on LinkedIn. Hopefully you like the story. And as soon as COVID happened, lockdown came in place, right? And he said, for the last 10 years, I've been working all hours that God has set me to build a successful online business alongside our retail. Now, he had a retail carpet business. And he's been spending literally, every single waking minute, he's saying, for 10 years building an online brand. And people were saying to him, it's waste time. Don't bother. And he said, now it's the perfect time, the perfect storm for me. And it was quite interesting, actually, because I received an email, and I just want you to show this email. I've muted it all out on the 14th of January. I don't know if you can see this, but essentially it was a carpet brand, very similar to this client, carpet brand, who was saying, I need some help advertising to get people into my retail store. And I basically replied and said, I understand what you want to do. I really do. But what I'm telling you to do is to create an online store, because rates are going up, rents are getting higher, and you're going to wish you had an online e-commerce store. So it's actually what I said. And he said, no, Peter, I just want Facebook ads for the store. And I said, we can't help you then, because I don't want to sell something I don't believe in. So I said, I can't help you. Here's use another agency. It's not for us. 2 months later, his retail office has been locked down. If he had that online store, he'd been absolutely winning right now. And a lot of people are thinking and saying to me, they're going, look, Pete, it's not the right time for me. I'll wait till it all comes through. This could happen again. The economy could be locked down again. And if you're doing what you've always done, you're going to have big problems, really, really big problems. So start using this time to think and plan and move forward. This is a graph that shows Facebook advertising's cost per click. How much you're paying per click. It's the lowest point it's been in the last year. It's the lowest point it's been in the last 12 months. This is the time to try these new strategies. This is the time to really push forward and try and make a difference. And I really recommend you take this moment of time. You got a little bit more free time to really get to grips with this stuff. Absolutely, completely agree. And I just want to, I'm going to wrap up before I pass it over to Mike to talk about PR. If you just improve your marketing, if you just improve your business by 1% at a time, every single day, your business will be 37.78 times as big as it was before. And that's what I really believe in with marketing. It's a mathematical equation that stacks. Increase it 1% every single day, and now we're 38 times as big as we were before. You have to be making sure you're making progress. If you're just sitting still, you will lose. And that's the reality of it. This I completely believe. After all this blows over, there'll be huge amounts of opportunity, huge amounts of potential for brands, and you have to make sure that you're jumping on this wagon. And what I'm going to say just before I pass it over to Mike is I really want you to utilize this time to speak to Tom, Mike, who've offered their time for free to really go on about your business, what they can really do to help. I mean, for me during these times, like I said, you need all the help you can get. It's a really challenging time. Even if it's a stupid question, ask it. They've probably already heard it. And that's the key thing, making sure you're getting support to take your business to the next level. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass this across to Mike, Mike's got some amazing stories about kind of what he's been doing in PR. Mike's been in PR for God knows how long now, real veteran what he does, understands the game moving forward, really understands what's happening in the space right now. You see, what we've seen is a real shift from traditional PR, getting in the press, to now what's really happening with backlinks, what's really happening with how you get into the Times Online, which is really what we want to be nowadays. And it's a real art form. It's a real challenge to kind of get to that point. So if I can get Mike on the screen now before I pass him across, any questions you've got regarding anything, write them in the comment section, put them in there, and we'll get them asked, we'll get them answered, and we'll go from that point. But we'll get Mike's slides up now. And Mike, over to you to run us through the innovative use of PR.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, guys. I think I speak for sort of all of us by saying thanks for sort of attending, because I realise how sort of important your time is. So thanks for sticking around. So I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about what Tom said in terms of providing value for people, because I think PR is a very easy tool to kind of leverage in terms of getting your voice out there and sort of showing off your expertise in a way. So we'll sort of go through some examples of kind of clients that we've worked with, and basically just show you how you can kind of turn yourselves into the experts in your field, which is easier than you might imagine. So I'll use this as a perfect example, really. So we look after a company that deal with insolvencies and business rescue. Now, this isn't the most quote sexy sort of industry to talk about. So when we actually got in touch with them, they said, right, well, basically our work is not glamorous. How would you transform us into something worth writing about, worth featuring in the industry press, as well as sort of niche press that sort of appeals to people like them. So they sort of target SMEs who might be sort of facing financial troubles or financial ruin, or people who are just having a bit of problem with their cash flow. They might be in debt to HMRC. They might be sort of struggling to pay suppliers. Their supply chain might be a little bit compromised as sort of time goes on. So really, that on its own is only interesting to people whose businesses are actually in that situation. So really, we needed to find an alternative audience for them. Now, this was quite easy to do back in the day. So we've been working with these for about 3 or 4 years now. And what's interesting about them is that during Brexit negotiations, their MD was quite interested in, I'd say, like he was an ardent leaver. He kind of believed in the cause that he had. So we basically found that as his kind of hook, his interesting aspect to sort of talk about, and he became almost an expert on that as time went on. He talked about it, what it would mean for SMEs, what would it mean for supply chains with Europe, what would it mean for doing business going forward. And we still don't know what Brexit might hold, so he still gets asked about that, but I'll go on to what we talk about now as well, because he's actually found another niche as well. So like I say, it's about finding the right PR angle for an audience. So Rick, as you can see there, he became almost the go-to person in sort of like Northeast Lincolnshire and the East Midlands, really, to sort of talk about this kind of issue. So you can see there that he's being optimistic about Brexit and the effects of leaving the EU in general, and what he thought was happening. Theresa May obviously created quite a lot of headlines through her policies and the way she negotiated things. And Rick was always on hand to sort of be a voice that could sort of speak for businesses. Here, he kind of reflected on what it might mean when the deadline for Brexit was actually looming. So I don't know if you remember, but there was quite a lot of uncertainty as to which businesses would be affected most immediately, whether anything would be a step change as soon as that deadline sort of passed. And Rick was really sort of quite an instrumental voice, so much so that he actually ended up sort of talking about it in other places. That's not to say that we abandoned his initial sort of expertise. So debt collectors, how far are they allowed to go to claim money back from you? So we engaged with sort of mainstream titles to sort of say, look, we've got this expert who knows debt, he knows what people's rights are. If you need any sort of advice about what it means for consumers or for businesses, let me know. And thankfully, we managed to get him onto the Metro. Now, bankruptcy isn't exactly an interesting topic for most people. However, this was like almost like a consumer piece that was asking important questions about your rights. So we were able to pivot his industry knowledge, his B2B knowledge, into some B2C, business to consumer sort of knowledge there as well. So I think it's really just being adaptable and finding out and adapting and pivoting what you think you know as a business, and sort of making it for other people's narratives. That's what's happened here basically. Moving on from there, so we also focused on something called newsjacking. Now, this is something that a lot of people do, and it's something that you can utilize for almost any business. You can kind of stretch your viewpoint into someone else's narrative, someone else's story, and the ways in which you sort of talk about what it is you know and what it is you can kind of apply to current news stories. So we did that several times, and we continue to do that every day with all of our clients. However, Rick has actually sort of had a new sort of thing to focus on recently, which is retail. Obviously, COVID-19 has impacted it further, but the British High Street has been in trouble for a long, long time. You'll see sort of empty shops up and down the country. That's probably only going to get worse. And from working with Rick, that's kind of like what we've ascertained. What we've been able to do is actually offer Rick as a talking head almost for what firms could have done to actually save themselves, and what firms might be able to do in the future to sort of pivot on the retail model and kind of what it means for people who've got brick and mortar stores. So Rick has been in probably every retail magazine you can imagine. He regularly contributes to the Retail Gazette and the Times as a sort of figurehead for ways to avoid going into trouble. So often we put him up as, we pitch him forward as a speaker who can be depended upon to jump on content and sort of give it a spin that would be relevant to both SMEs and retailers that might be sort of looking towards this. So we've got quite a good relationship with the Bristol Post. You can see there the Debenhams crisis. Obviously, Debenhams take up quite a lot of space in high streets up and down the country. As a result, they're going to leave a huge gap if they actually close the stores. You might have seen recently they've closed quite a few big stores. So when Bristol's was sort of in crisis, they asked him his view on what the impact might be for the high street in general in that city. So yeah, quite an interesting one there, and I'm sure that story's not done yet. So we'll get Rick some more coverage on that as well. This sort of goes across to other brands that were in trouble as well. So Thomas Cook, although it's been saved by a few sort of different companies sort of taking parts of the business and the brick and mortar stores, when they collapsed, that was like a big kind of scary moment earlier this year for a lot of people. Rick was on hand to comment on that for various things such as the Express, and he also has commented on the demise of airlines like Flybe and various ones that have encountered trouble. I think that's probably going to continue as well. We're seeing quite a lot of high-profile airlines in trouble, most notably Virgin Atlantic, which has had to be bailed out. This next one, Retail Gazette, simply whether HMV has a future on UK's high street. It's been in and out of administration several times, and Rick's always been there to sort of say, you know, have they got their model right? Have they got their debts in order? Have they got the ability to sort of pivot on what they've already got? Could they start offering other services to the more discerning music listener? Is it the end for a retail brand that's been on our streets for, I think it's about 100 years, isn't it? HMV is quite an old brand. When we were talking about Brexit, we were able to put Rick forward for television. So he became, because what I talk about is the snowball effect. Like when you get some coverage initially, you can actually make that snowball. You can actually pick up a lot of momentum, thanks to Rick's outspoken views, I guess, on a few things like Brexit and the way in which it might affect businesses. I mean, I think a lot of the sort of national mood was it wasn't going to be good for business initially, but obviously Rick's view is different from that. So he was quite a sort of stark figure, a lone figure in that sort of sphere. So we were able to get him onto the Victoria Derbyshire show, and the same week on the Adam Bolton news show, so on Sky. So he actually talked about that 1 year before Brexit was about to happen. So he still gets requests for radio and TV. So it's been quite an interesting. And Rick is almost like in demand now. We don't really have to pitch him out as hard. People actually get in touch with us to get in touch with him. And who would have known that someone who owns an insolvency practice could be sort of in demand nationally on a regular basis, talking about retail, airlines, and some of the biggest business deals that are going wrong in the world today. It can happen for anyone. I mean, this is just a perfect example, really. Yeah, like I said earlier, we talked about Flybe, and that was one that just came to us, just asking, like, oh, we've noticed Rick has talked about this sort of thing in the past. Perhaps you can talk about this. So, you know, if you're seen as an expert in your field and you make yourself known, then word travels fast. So, like I say, positioning yourself as an expert is very important, but reacting to news stories is absolutely crucial. So there's a few examples there that we've kind of covered. Now, I really want to talk about this as an exciting kind of development for us, really, because this is something that we've been working on for the past year or two. Link building is becoming a bit more of a strategy within PR. So gone are the days of being able to just send out a press release and hope for the best. You know, that was the old way of interacting with the media. It was, you know, send a press release, send a nice photo, job done. If it gets covered, it gets covered. That's great, no problem at all. But these days, there's so much competition out there, and there's actually more PRs out there and more companies employing marketing teams and PR agencies. That the noise out there is quite deafening, really. There's really quite a difference in between the amount of PR professionals and the actual amount of journalists that are out there able to actually pitch to. And more titles are using freelance journalists now. So it's knowing the right people and knowing what they want. As a result, the more that you can give a journalist these days, the better. Now, I'm not saying this is an easy process, but it's something that we have worked on for several clients and it's worked. So basically, Tom talked a little bit about data earlier, and I think that's something that's key across marketing, and that includes PR. So finding unique data that only you or only your sort of industry might know about, and capitalizing on that is something that I'd recommend at least looking into, if not utilizing in sort of all of your PR sort of going forward. So we'll go through a few things on here. that we can sort of suggest. And obviously, the key here is to be creative. I mean, you know, a run-of-the-mill story about you know, an appointment or a new office or a new client is interesting. It's fine. It'll get you, you know, average kind of amounts of coverage. It will provide you with a base PR sort of benchmark and a bit of presence online. Always good for SEO and always good for ranking on Google. But really, what you need to be concentrating on is standing out. And I think that's what we'll just sort of get onto now. So this is an example that we've sort of seen do very well in the past few years. So doing something that's completely different from what you normally do, and it might not even be related to what you actually do. If you can find a hook, if you can find something interesting and quirky, then this is a quick way to get coverage. So I'm not sure if anyone's aware of this, but Game did something called a Christmas tinner, which was basically a Christmas dinner in a tin, because it was based on the fact that you get so many games for Christmas that you wouldn't have time to cook. You could literally empty this into a microwave, and yeah, I don't know how appetizing it looks, but you know, it was a bit of a quirky thing. Not sure if anyone actually ate one. If they did, then you know, I'm surprised they're still here today. But this was a really good one because it kind of it got people's attention, and it was to sort of advertise a product, which was gaming chairs. That actually worked really well, and they actually brought it back a year later as a vegan version to sort of capitalize on the trends. And that's again paying attention to the news, and it's almost like reinterpreting a campaign that worked from before, but putting a new little twist on it. So that's just an example of some of the quirky stuff you can do. And obviously that sort of landed a lot of links for Game. That was a really good campaign. Yeah, so basically, if you're thinking that your industry can't break through the noise and can't sort of be one of these innovative and exciting brands that have sort of done amazing things and got this amazing coverage, you know, like national coverage, multiple people using it as a result, then you know, you're not really thinking as big as you might be able to go. Really, the data that you've got is the most valuable asset you have at the moment. I know Pete says that, and I know Tom said that before. So what we've done on our side is we've worked with a property company that sort of specialized in conveyancing. So we wanted to sort of, again, not the most exciting sort of brand to talk about. It's very niche. It's something that people only use possibly once in their lives. You know, that buying a house is like a very big decision. Your conveyancer sometimes comes along with your mortgage broker, but sometimes you want to use an independent, and there's a huge choice out there. So what we wanted to do was get our client a little bit of recognition and a little bit of expert knowledge, like displayed publicly. So what we did was we looked into how long, from their data and from their dealings of hundreds and thousands of people moving house, the data that would be able to be supplied from how long it takes to move house, the cost of that housing, any information on houses falling through, what percentage that was, and yeah, just sort of underlining their kind of expertise in property law. So this is a really interesting one. They had a massive database. They didn't know how to interpret it. They handed over as much access as they could to us. We had a look through, and what we actually found was ways in which to look at this and sort of leverage it in their favor. So we were able to find out that journalists were sort of interested through sort of pitching and sort of just communication with them about how long cities took to rank, and we wanted to maybe rank it nationally. So what we were actually able to do was like drill down into different areas. So we focused it because people generally love lists. They generally love lists that they can apply to real life situations. The nationals expressed an interest in it straight away. We actually sort of tailored them for local campaigns as well. So we did, the top 10 areas in the East Midlands that take the longest to move into, or the fastest area to move a house, or the most likely area to have a house deal fall through, things like that. Really easy to chart, really easy to kind of put into infographics, and and it just blew up really. I mean, this is something that we can actually repeat over time. We could do this every year. It's a piece of content that will last and last and last. So have a think about what data you have and how you could possibly use it to kind of progress what you've already got as your industry knowledge. We actually combined this with some advice, what to look out for if you think that your house might be about to fall through, the measures you can take to mitigate that, and just a bit about how long the average house move actually takes. I think some people are incredibly lucky and it takes a few days to convey something. Other people, it might take 3 or 4 months. It really does depend. So it was quite interesting to see geographically as well, which areas had the best kind of reputation for this sort of thing as well, using hard data. And I think we were quite lucky in the fact that we had quite a surfeit of data for that kind of market as well. If you are struggling with data as well, it doesn't have to be your own. You can find stuff all over the web. There's all sorts of websites for free that you can use. .gov is a great sort of place to sort of find things. So you can take one piece of data, a percentage that applies to your trade, extrapolate that, and then find out, do your own research, do your own sort of internal research and creative, and you can actually find a lot to sort of talk about. It's not necessarily something that's the sole sort of property of PR agencies like us that can kind of use this data to create stories and to create interesting content. I mean, this can take the form of content on your own website. I'd always recommend putting some content on your own website to draw back to, but teasing things out with a press release or a little bit of the research, say one statistic that really sticks out, that kind of leads that research and leads that kind of data leading back into what you've actually got on your website. So that's a really interesting campaign that we've put together. Yeah, and basically, yeah, we could pull that down into sort of local campaigns, like regional newspapers, regional magazines are strapped for time. Journalists these days are super busy. They might have a news meeting on Monday. By Thursday, they're expected to do 30 to 40 stories. That's anything from high-profile crime right down to business and kind of communities kind of news. So if you can make their job easier, then you'll be infinitely more liked and infinitely more likely to land a sort of story if you can prove yourself to be quite useful in these situations. So the example that we give here is like Hull ranks the 6th fastest place to move a house in the UK. Hull Daily Mail would love something like that. Equally, if Birmingham was kind of struggling as a place, that's equally a story that the Birmingham Mail might actually run. So it's kind of how you pitch it is very important, and how you kind of present it to people. The key to the backlink, like I say, is to make sure that the information that you are sort of teasing with your initial pitches and your initial kind of communications with the press always link back to your own website. At the end of the day, that's what you want. You want people to go back, visit your site so that you're always in their mind. If they actually click the link back to your site, if the journalist includes a link, then obviously that can make people fall into sort of advertising funnels. So that's where the likes of Tom and Pete come in to sort of know that you're already in that sort of area and that audience of interest, and then they can be advertised to through social. And if they do leave their email, if you sort of make a PDF available where you have to actually download it and provide contact details, then they're falling into another funnel as well. So it kind of, you're doing a lot of groundwork, but at the end of the day, the results kind of speak for themselves. The results kind of move themselves from what you've actually sort of laid out. Yeah, and I think that's another thing. Like I think Pete says, it's actually the most valuable commodity that you have that you probably don't realize you have at the moment is data. If you have something that no one else can access, and if you have something that is unique and the key is interesting, or you can make it interesting, then what a valuable asset. What's more valuable than something that everyone else doesn't know that you do? So, you know, have a think about that. Like I say, there are some sources for data. There's the ONS, the Office for National Statistics. They're infinitely useful. There's kind of national studies on there. There's niche studies on there. And there's usually something you can pull out to kind of think, well, actually, that's a really interesting stat. So at the moment, we're working on some retail stories and a campaign like this for Forbes Burton, who I described earlier. Rick's sort of penning an ebook, as well as some other sort of assets to talk about the future of retail, considering COVID-19, considering possible recession, and considering the fact that more people than ever are shopping online, and they're saying that a lot of local retailers aren't going to survive. So that's a real sort of big campaign that we're going to roll out soon. So we've used quite a lot of figures from the ONS for that. We've used stuff from retail research and nationally available stats that are already out there, but we're just putting it through another filter, putting it through an expert filter. So I think that's just where you need to be. Yeah, thanks for listening. Might have sped through that a little bit, but I realised that we're sort of an hour and a half into this now, so I hope people can get a little bit from that. Pete, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, if I can just get if he's still around about, that'd be amazing. I just want to say thanks so much for everyone for coming to this. I kind of opened the floor to any questions. It's been an amazing turnout for everyone that's come, so I really appreciate you spending your time to kind of spend some time here today. I'm just going to put another little plug for Tom and Mike. Both of them are happy to give some of their time up to support you guys wherever required. If you've got any questions that you want to hit the floor with now, please put them in the comment section. If not, like I said, just fill that register now button in, speak to Tom or Mike, just say who you want to speak to in that comment section. It'll be diverted to those guys. I don't know. I mean, this is kind of the first chance of us doing the Cambridge Marketing Conference. Like I said, we were meant to do it physically, unfortunately, but COVID-19 kind of got in the way. How rude of it. So we had to bring it online. And like I said before, it's all about utilizing innovation, pushing forward, and just making sure that you're kind of moving forward with this whole process. So if there's no questions, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for attending this. It really means a lot to me. If you've got any questions or you want anything following up with, hit me with an email. You should have my details on sign up, and I can pass that through to the relevant people required. And also feedback. I'd love to have some of your feedback. If you've got anything you think could be better, things that you didn't like that happened or whatever, please again hit me up on email. I really want to kind of make sure that these things run more smoothly in the future. And another one, how often should we do these in Cambridge? I mean, should we be doing these every 6 months, every 12 months? Do you want them more regularly? Let us know, because we've got some amazingly talented people here in Tom and Mike, and also the wider team that I'm more than happy to bring on and support you guys. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, as a managing director, is that the only way we can grow our economy is allowing businesses like yourselves to utilize these great techniques to push your business further on, and to help us shoot out of this 20% decrease in GDP. So yeah, if there's no questions, really appreciate you sticking by. Please message me if you've got anything else, and yeah, we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, guys.